a big chunk of all of this unhappiness is we're lacking meaning and we're lacking this allowance of telling ourselves, like you said, Emil, we have this high sense of agency in life. We can honor our time on earth. You're allowed to explore your passions. You're allowed to create your life. It's just, you don't have to be passive through life. You don't have to conform to a career.
So I'm here with Alex, and we will talk about his podcast Through Conversations, and most definitely about his book, The Time Is Now, which I do have here on Kindle right now. I will definitely get a hard copy after what I've been reading. But first off, Alex, why don't you introduce yourself in your own words? What is your part
Thank you,
and your
Emil. I
story?
appreciate you uh, inviting me, and I'm excited for this. It's the first interview of the book, so it's an honor. I'm very grateful for that. And I'm a host of the Through Conversations podcast. I've been doing this show for the past 4 or 5 years, if my numbers make sense. And for the past 2 years, I've been thinking about the future of work, particularly because of my own personal story. I was grappling with, these ideas on this dissonance in my mind of how come I'm working on my dream job. I'm having a great, path forward. Uh, I had my own stint at corporate jobs as well, but within me, everything, it kind of felt like empty in a way. It didn't make sense, the dissonance between I'm living my best life on paper, but everything is not making sense in the inside. And I've been seeing also the trends with Gen Z, with millennials about the future of work. Now that we're entering an era of automation, of AI, of delegation, of really the questioning of what a well life lived means in the career sense also. How can we build a career based on our lives, not our lives based in our careers? And for us, Gen Z, I can speak for myself as well. I see my work as an extension of myself, not as a separation. I wrote about these ideas on the book that you just showed. Here's the hardcover, The Time Is Now, my first book. It didn't born as a book, Emil. It was really just like a personal journal because I was grappling with that quarter life crisis. Like I had to make sense of things, and it became something bigger than me. And it really replenished when I started writing it, replenished my life energy, my priorities, who I want to be in this world. And I'm hoping that at least just one person out there can benefit from these questions and this approach towards how to honor our time on earth.
Yeah, thank you for putting this. And this book is definitely about choosing a life path. And fortunately enough, I'm directly in your target group. So this spoke kind of directly to me, and I felt so I could identify myself in their words, because I'm struggling myself to find a path where I'm kind of have the chance to direct myself and in which direction I want to go. And I read a little bit of like defining decades and stuff like that, where you kind of want to make sense how you're going, and the generation is evolving different. We're having much more time to figure out, and it's much harder to figure out at the same time. So just one or two generations. When I think of my grandparents or so, they started doing their traineeship at 15, and they kept on going for that same job their whole life. I couldn't even imagine at 25 choosing a certain profession and kind of executing this my entire life. And every time I had a job where I thought, yeah, this is cool, I never found myself really caught up in like a job situation, because it's too much of a frame, too much of a box, and I don't really identify myself in being kind of framed too much in a certain thing, where some kind of jobs are usually just a set of tasks and not really a kind of person you need to be in. So you spoke about your dream job. What was it about that made it seem like it's your dream job?
It's a great question, and I love also the your context into your own situation, because I also feel that there is a systemic issue here that we don't really talk about a lot, which is how come our parents, baby boomers, Gen X's, have had a chance to really live a life of a 40-year career, which is really commendable. What I don't want people to think about the book is that I'm demonizing any career or any path whatsoever.
Yeah.
The whole core is to really align that career with your true self, with your intuition, with your heart, and follow that, because we've been thrown at us since the industrial age a script of how life should unfold. You should get a college degree, get married, have kids, and then die. And for many people this does work, but it becomes a mechanization of life. It doesn't allow life itself to surprise you, to allow serendipity to unfold. And for me, that's a dishonor to your time on earth. We're really here, and I'm knocking on wood, for 85 to 100 years. And I think to myself, when I'm 90 years and I'm on my deathbed and I reflect on situations on my life and I see that I did a cost-benefit analysis in terms of what's going to make more profit for me versus what my heart told me to. It's like, for example, there's a pivot down the road. There's like two paths, and I had to choose the one that makes more monetary sense or more rational sense. I don't think, at least knowing myself, I don't think I would be comfortable, living a life that way. And the systemic part of this, Emil, is that for many of our jobs, we're working more hours, we're providing more output, and we're receiving less pay. For example, since the 1970s, there's been a delta between productivity and pay of 70. I think the numbers are in the book, but it's 65 to 70% of a gap. People are working more, but the pay has stayed stagnant. And so in a very literal sense,
yes,
we're not making more money out of our work. We're providing more output and less pay. And that's also, I think, part of the whole questioning of, hey, am I really willing to spend 40 years of my life in a place where I feel like I'm draining my soul, my creative energy for a paycheck that doesn't reflect the true output that I'm giving to the company, and it doesn't reflect also my own colors. And so I feel this is a whole equation that we need to bring, that I love on your perspective on, why are we not choosing a 40-year career when it can happen? If I would have loved my dream job, that's your question, I would have happily stayed for 40 years there. But it didn't just click. And for me, it was very linear. I've always wanted to be involved in public service. I feel that it's very funny because the origin story of that, I don't know if you've watched House of Cards, the Netflix show. It's, Kevin Spacey. Yeah. It's a really good one, but it provides the dark side of politics. It provides corruption and, being hungry for power. And I feel that we're entering in an age where it doesn't make sense for me that we think of politicians as bad actors. That we associate politicians as someone who are people who are greedy and just want to do good. And and I ask myself, why not more? Like, why don't we have more kids saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? And no one says a politician, because it's not like a commendable job. It's a very, it's a villain. And so House of Cards reflect that to me. It's just, I wanted to provide the opposite of that. In my life, I wanted to be a public servant, but the way I carved my path was very strategic. It was very rational. So first I needed to be involved in politics, and then work my way upwards. But I've always felt that I was stumbling on a wall, even though I was close to my dream, I was close to my goal, it wasn't clicking. And so then I started reading other ideas from many brilliant minds, and I've hosted a ton of people here on my podcast through conversations, including Paul Millerd, including Kenneth Stanley. That, you know, it's funny. Someone posted like, why doesn't someone create a book that's related to both ideas? And the time is now. My book is kind of like that, in the sense that life
Yes.
shouldn't be scripted. We don't know what life can surprise us with. And there's tangible evidence from Kenneth Stanley's point about AI that greatness cannot be planned, that there are so many serendipitous moments in life awaiting for us that make our path easier once we let go of what greatness should be. So I might become a public servant one day, 30 years from now, 20 years from now, by following my interests. I might see this in hindsight. I'm going to see, oh, it made sense because the dots were connecting. But I'm not trying to force it. And it's hard because in modernity, and especially in Western culture, we have to optimize, we have to get to that goal. And I've been raised on that idea that, I have to work hard to get to that certain objective. But it excites me more that if I put my best effort out there, my best heart out there, life will take care of itself. And if it doesn't become a public servant, if the identity that I'm carving doesn't become a politician, my colors, my true essence will shine in another way. Maybe through the podcast, maybe through books, maybe becoming a chef. Who knows? But the essence itself won't change. Maybe the form will change. So Emil, I throw a lot of ideas out there. I spoke too much.
No, definitely. I'm here for your input. So I'm about a bit more than halfway through your book, and I will definitely finish it, which is to be seen as a compliment, because I rarely stick on reading a book, and I really liked some parts of it. What stuck with me definitely. I'm honest. I skipped some of the numbers because I'm here in Germany, so it's a different kind of system than in the US, and some kind of things are just not the same, like student debt. But I've seen kind of the things when I'm considering kind of maybe doing a master's degree, which then might result in a huge or a bigger amount of money to be allocated, or if I could just use the time and money to create something else. But what I've wondered is, why is it so hard to strategize your life? It is so fun to think of what building blocks you need to put together in order then to finally someone have a step. And one figure which I remembered pretty deeply is that we just build upon the future and never like reaping the present moment. And this hit me very hard because I always thought I need to be better in order to sometime I will make a lot of money and be successful if I just kept on going and never really enjoyed what I was doing right now. So why is it so hard to strategize your life and career?
Yeah, it's the question, because we oftentimes, and thank you for reading the book, really, that means a lot, and I'm glad you're halfway there. There were some ideas that I thrown, especially chapter 4, the evolutionary blueprint of why we chase status and all of that sort of thing. That's like my most crazy chapter, so I'm glad you got past through it. We've been told that in a good way, and it makes sense rationally, that we should postpone our enjoyment today for a better tomorrow. We should save for rainy days.
Yep.
And it makes total sense. This strategy is not about trying to make us feel lesser or make us feel bad. It's just trying to protect us from a future that is uncertain, it's unknown. And that's where the career comes in the equation. That's where strategizing comes into the equation, because there's a quote that I love from Muji that sort of goes, I think it's in the latter chapters, that says that, basically, I'm paraphrasing right now, but how come we don't trust life when life has given us so much? And then it becomes a game of strategy motivated by anxiety. It's just, and it makes so much sense to me that I see in hindsight, I see all of the blessings that I've had, even in my dream job. It wasn't all bad at all. And I see all the twists and turns of life just guiding me. And I'm like, how do I feel? How can I feel bigger than life with my little checklist, of get a master's, get a career, save X% of money? It's just, it boggles my mind, Emil, that I'm reducing my life on earth and life itself. And this is very cheesy and kumbaya, or I don't know. But
Yeah.
it just boggles my mind that I'm willing to reduce my life to a paper, to a checkbox, to a checklist. And the career itself provides that incentive because it's very tangible. You can see the stepping stones into becoming first an intern. Then you become a junior partner. Then you become a manager. And then you keep peeling these layers, of the path. And it makes so much sense because they're tangible. You know what's going to be your life, how it's going to be like in 1 year, in 2 years. You're going to see your pay bumps. And so it creates this safety blanket, an illusionary one, that your path is going to make sense. And in today's world, and going back to your first intervention, and Gen Z and millennials, we're somewhat more entrepreneurial. We're more, like I said, work has to be an extension of ourselves. And
Definitely.
it doesn't make sense to separate the two. It doesn't make sense. It just those two ideas are mutually exclusive. And integrating the sense of building a path versus strategizing it, while sounding a bit ambiguous, it does change your perspective on making decisions. And I'm not advocating for impulsivity and just making rash decisions. I'm saying that the core question that we have to ask ourselves when thinking about our career and thinking about meaning is, what decision right now speaks to my deepest purpose? And if I found my deepest purpose, and which one gets me closer to it? The rest of those decisions that are not aligned with that and are rationalized with a sense of, you know what, it's a very tough question, so right now I should focus just on getting a good paying career, and then I'll postpone that. And it's a tough one, man, because serving your deepest purpose doesn't guarantee a high paycheck. It doesn't guarantee stability. That's the difficult part. That's where strategizing a career makes it so difficult, because following your heart only guarantees less of what you know. It's guaranteeing more uncertainty. It's guaranteeing more openness of let life unfold. And a lot of people, one of the things that concerns me about these ideas is that, Alex, probably you have it easy, to say just let life unfold you, but we have bills to pay. We have to make dues, And of course, like I said, the systemic shocks of the economic system are making it increasingly difficult to follow that path, to follow that journey. But I still believe that the time is now. If you're calling, if you're really having that inner whisper, inner song within you, saying this is not right for me, wouldn't you rather take that leap of faith, take that risk, and see what happens? Probably you could put, 1 month into it, 6 months into it, whatever is also practical for you, versus saying this is just impossible for me. And so that's an equation that we have to navigate ourselves, but it's increasingly important because there's so much demand for sincerity and for authenticity in today's world that it's just, we need more people taking those leaps of faith. And then you start seeing, at least on the internet, on X, we start seeing this magic happen. We're talking together probably we would have never met if the book wasn't out there, which is crazy. And you start connecting with people, and people start supporting you. And hey, when you're in the US, Emil, let's catch up and let's go for a coffee. And then something happens, your interest. Hey, I can connect you with this person or with that person. Or hey, when I go to Germany, I'll meet your friends. And it's so intangible, but it's possible. And that's what excites me.
Yeah, the possibilities are basically endless if you find some kind of common ground, and the being a good, willing person, and to really like and support other people, which is what I've noticed. Another thing that just came up, as you said, just trying out and see if this is something you will try out for a few months, or if you really sense this is an impossible thing. What kind of pops into my mind is the matter of persistence. So I think, I don't know if this is a strength or a weakness of mine, is that I have a strong sense of when something doesn't feel a bit off. And I think sometimes that I'm too fast to cut something off if it doesn't feel right. I don't think that I'm persistent at all. I need to be like 100% real, but I've noticed here, and we are both podcasters, and I'm not, it's close to a year now, but I feel it's hard. Even if you love something, it is so hard to stay persistent until you go. So how do you balance your spontaneous creative energy with being persistent and building something you will look on and be proud of?
I love that question. Thank you. That's a very, very great question. And I relate to that a lot because podcasting is really difficult, first of all. And now that you're a year into it, you're like, I think you've passed the threshold of giving up. I would say that an idea that comes to mind is, it's twofold. I'm going to start with the first part. When it's an intrinsic interest of yours, it feels way easier to keep being persistent. I'm not saying that when you follow your heart, it's going to be easy. It's probably going to be even more difficult. And the key here is that, for example, with my book and my podcast, that became really just, they're just passion projects. They were born out of me. I see everything that's happening now as tailwind, just like a wind in my favor. So I'm not keeping track of metrics and of growth, of all that sort of thing. I just feel that everything will take care of itself as long as I keep being persistent with what interests me. And so when I book an interview, I want to interview that person. I want to speak with them. Their ideas resonated with me. And so I know that will take care of itself. The views and everything, that's the whole issue with it, because a passion project becomes a business project, and then it becomes an identity that we need to fulfill. And if we fail, we're a massive failure. And then this whole anxiety bubble starts popping up, like, if I don't make it, what happens? And you're making it now. You're hosting podcasts, you're hosting interviews. Everything else in itself will take care of itself in ways that maybe are different than your expectations. And so I've been trying, and it's hard, because we've been conditioned to really maximize outcome. But I've been trying to just let go of that control of what's going to happen. And there's a book that I want to recommend to you that we're not family, but he's my namesake. He's Victor Levy. It's called Life is Setting Me Up for Success. And he has this line that I wrote in the book that says, completely committed, totally committed, completely unattached. And that just brings me to, wow. So if I put all my heart and soul to my craft, and I'm not obsessively focused on if it's going to work out or not, wow, like the possibilities are endless. And then there's another thing that we have to also discuss, Emil, which is the darker side of this. It's called the sunk cost bias. And I wrote about
Yeah.
it in the book that I feel a lot of people do suffer from this, especially in careers, because they spend 4 or 5 years in a career, even though they're drained, even though their life force is taken away from them, their creativity is like, they're just not them. But the time spent is so much that they cannot say, I give up, I throw in the towel. And so this is the line that we need to navigate. Where is that persistence coming from? Is it coming from a place of, I want to explore this, this is my calling? Or is it because you've just invested so much time, you've committed yourself too much, you're deep into it? Also in relationships, man, like toxic relationships. You've been in a relationship for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, but it's toxic. You feel drained, but you spend so much time investing in it that it's just hard to saying stop. And the sunk cost bias is really visible in gambling, for example. You spend so much
Yeah.
money gambling that maybe the next the next time you're gambling, the next time will be the blackjack. And that's the thread that we need to navigate, is where is that intention coming from? And yeah, it's also that something I face myself all the time. I mean, not because I wrote the book. The book in itself is allowing me, I reread it, I reread it to remind myself of things.
Yeah.
And it's this dance. It's this dance that we need to navigate. Is the first question is, where is that persistence coming from? And what would happen if you just give out, you give up on the outcome? And what would happen if, even though you spend so much time into it, how would your life look like without that path? So I guess that's my 2 cents here.
Yeah, thank you for your perspective on persistence, especially because it's so much part of my journey, where kind of reflecting a lot of decisions I've made, and definitely I was a child still in school, and still being put to make some decisions on which high school I should get and stuff like that. And though I had the chance to kind of pick the better schools sometimes, or more ambitious projects or something, I always chose the simpler, the easier one, and I'm not entirely sure why. And for my I don't know how it translates to like the US school system, but my majors, so to speak, in high school still were English and arts, resulting me in having to have like a exam in maths, which I'm really bad in, because I suffer from dyscalculia, which makes me impossible to make math at elementary school level. But that kind of made me did not want to learn math at all, no matter the topic. I was just went, I don't want to have to do anything with math. So I don't know why I made this kind of decisions. Just because I loved like the English language and art so much, I was willing to kind of have my weakness exposed so much. With other constellations, I could have had like biology or something, which would be far more attainable for me. But I chose willingly my weakness. So how do you think that comes, even if it's not like career centric, but still in school? But I wonder, what do you think this decision came from?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very easy in life, especially in modernity, in the Western world, to have this play-by-play breakdown, on why did you choose that decision. And I also advocate on the book that, I think it's chapter 6 or chapter 5, that intuition is our best radar. That, for example, there's Rick Rubin,
Yeah.
who wrote The Creative Act, and he's a genius. I add a quote about him that says that his best career moves have always been the ones that were were really his own, that weren't really the advice of his peers, his family, that were really just what felt right, not what seemed right. And
Yeah.
I feel that coming to your own situation, how you chose your decisions, Emil, sometimes they don't make sense rationally, but you were drawn into them intuitively, or there were just interests. And when that happens to me, when I make decisions based out of what I'm have my sixth sense saying, like, I have to lean into this, or my gut feelings, or just my heart saying this interests me right now, even though I don't have a play-by-play breakdown rationally of why it makes sense, you start feeling a bit guilty, because we've been told that everything has to make sense mechanically. Every decision we have to make has to make sense. And that's where leaning into intuition is so difficult, because when your family asks you, hey, why did you quit your job, your dream job? Why didn't you continue doing that? And you don't have a rational answer, and you say it just felt right, or it didn't feel right.
Yeah.
They start looking at you like, oh my God, like you're you're going down the path of craziness. And it's not true. I've never
Yeah.
felt more joyful, more with life force, more with this desire to share in my life than ever. And that's the whole. You can speak a bit more about it, but how did you feel after making that decision, and what paths opened that you weren't really foreseeing? And that's the exciting part. That's you seeing in hindsight how everything just really accommodated itself. And so that's what I would say is we have been embracing the idea that not having an explanation for things is crazy, but that in itself is the explanation. Being able to say just felt right at this moment. There's an image. I'm gonna put it in the notes here, or in the video. My team is gonna put it. It's an image, and I'll send it to you after
Yeah.
we finish. It's planet Earth. It's a very small, tiny blue marble, and the picture is taken from Jupiter. I think it's so far away, and
Mhm.
I keep thinking to myself, that's where Earth is. That's where my hopes are, my dreams are, my aspirations, my fears. And I'm really boiling down my life for it to make sense. It doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense, man. Like we're talking on a microphone that I don't even know how it works. And I have to make sense of my
Yeah.
career. It's just, I don't know, it's a lot of things to unfold.
Yeah. So definitely the whole thing with the intuition, as you said, the best decisions in the long run are made intuitively. But as another thing you said earlier is that this path of higher agency, maybe of deciding or deciding what your own path is, can come with a lot of uncertainty. And this is what I've experienced every time, that if you chose to follow your gut instincts, it's not easier because of that. It feels right, but there's struggles you can't even foresee at this point. So I definitely feel this a lot. So it matters to me, and so this book, to kind of circle a bit back to your process in writing it, you mainly, or so to say, as a technique for writing it as a personal book you would write to your younger self. And I think this is a great thing to kind of reflect upon what you would say to you years ago, or help someone else who's at like the same age or at the same stage of their life, like maybe I am currently. And so how did you got to kind of deciding that you want to write a book? So you made through the things, you set up a podcast, doing podcasts for years, and then all of a sudden you decide to write a book. You have said you went through this, and I see many people just build up on like an audience to finally have the power to sell something passively, and you can always sense these profit based books where you kind of see, yeah, this is just another regular self-help book in, as we say, the same in green as in Germany we say that. It's basically the same, just painted in another color or kind of switch back. But I definitely liked the perspective on this here. So at what point exactly did you get to have this product vision? So you're putting your thoughts into a product, which is a book.
Yeah. So a lot to unpack there. First of all, the thing that has made it so difficult is exactly that you say a lot of people. It you can feel when someone is just trying to sell you stuff, right? But then
Yeah.
I also think on. I'm gonna put it also the video here. It's Tyler the creator. He's doing an interview and he's saying, you spent all of this time, all of this effort, all of this sweat and tears, all of this creative output of yours, creating something, on this instance, the book. And you're not saying you're going to be the number one fan of your book. You're not going to put it out there and just share it with the world. And so that has convinced me to put the book out there, to post it on X, to share it with people, even though it feels cringy, because the book in itself wasn't really written at all for it to make sales. And I genuinely mean it. It began as a journal. I used to wake up, and first thing in the morning, I had all of these ideas in my mind, all of these questions. And I love writing. I've been writing my whole life, and I just spit the ideas on a Google Docs. I just started throwing all out there, without judgment. Just, it doesn't have to make sense, with typos, just ugly, just raw, putting it out there. And after a month, I started noticing that, hey, dude, you've been writing like almost, if you would have been a writer and like your goal was to create a book, you're writing almost like 2,000 words a day in a span of like 2 hours, 1 hour.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like it. It felt like someone was just like saying these ideas and I was just, putting them. It felt like I was a conduit. And it's very trippy because I've never felt that in my writing ever. And I started seeing the patterns, the trends that were happening worldwide, this meaning crisis that we're facing in modernity, that work doesn't make sense. There's a all-time high people facing anxiety and depression, infertility. There's so many challenges that we're facing. And I'm not a doctor. I don't think I'm a writer either. I started seeing that maybe a big chunk of all of this unhappiness is we're lacking meaning, and we're lacking this allowance of telling ourselves, like you said, Emil, we have this high sense of agency in life. We can honor our time on earth. You're allowed to explore your passions. You're allowed to create your life. It's just, you don't have to be passive through life. You don't have to conform to a career. Even though, like I said before, it's increasingly difficult not to do so given the economical constraints. And I decided that these ideas were helping me so much that I wanted to really put it out there and remind people that the time is now, that there's no better moment than the present moment. It's a present. And I've always wanted to write a book. There's a saying that says that you should write a book in your life, you should have a kid, and you should plant a tree. And for now, I just have one of those three. Hopefully the two come soon, God willing. But I didn't want, it hasn't been never a business decision. And I don't think it's going to be my last book. It's my first book. And probably it's a bit messy. It's imperfect in itself. And also, another idea that I want to throw out there is it's perfectly fine for it to be imperfect. I'm a perfectionist sometimes. The book might have a typo. The book might have an idea that doesn't make quite sense at all. Are you really willing not to post anything because it might be imperfect? we put so much handcuffs and so much stops into our creative process that it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine. And I just wish that, like you said, it for an 18-year-old self or for someone who's just exploring their own path now, the message that I want to convey is it doesn't have to make sense at all for others. It can only make sense for you. And you have time ahead of you. You're a billionaire now. You're like the wealthiest person ever at 18 years old, at 20 years old. You have so much time. There's this movie that features Justin Timberlake that I think it's called In Time. And their whole life is, they have in the wrist, they have their time, And that image strikes me a lot because I see how us being young, if we embrace that sense of agency, of power in life, we can shape a life that is really based on who we want to become. For a sprint, you can really, I'm not saying hard work is bad. I'm saying lock in. I'm saying really locking into your dreams, locking into exploring yourself, sense of self. And that can carve a life that might be even better than what they're selling you. It might be much better because it's aligned with who you are. And if I would tell myself, my 18-year-old self, Alex, you quit your dream job, you were on a perfect path to becoming a public servant or having a perfect corporate job, because I was doing kind of like all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
But you decided to throw everything away, take a sabbatical, take 6 months to yourself, explore what's really bothering inside your psyche, inside your soul, and then have this pivot in life. I would, like, my 18-year-old self will slap me. He would be like, dude, we've been working so hard for that, But at the same time, it's just much better, man. It's much more relieving to let go of that control, because life really does surprise you, and it's exciting. It's exciting, man.
Definitely is. And I needed to learn the hard way to build the courage to just share your rough ideas, to connect with other people, and to just go out there. And I'm also currently working on the book, and I heard kind of the same thing that and many people say that they want to write a book sometime in their life, and I don't know why, but kind of self-imposed barriers on now you're too young to do this, and you don't have the experience to write a book, and you need to have like prestigious life full of experience to then, with I don't know 55 you get a certificate of now you're experienced enough and to write a book. And I really learned the hard way that you can write, as an example, writing now, it could be any kind of content that you just show your current perspective. Need to, there is not the I have figured it all out perspective from being a senior of I've worked 50 years in marketing and now this is the best lessons you need to do. But there's any kind of thing, and you've experienced one thing that is so current and close to where you are now. It wouldn't make sense for you to wait 30 years to write that book that you have now written. You wouldn't have felt the same way. And it, as you quoted Rick Rubin, or kind of reference Rick Rubin before, in your writing process, it's like you're not pulling from your from hard work. It's more like the universe is telling you. So it's kind of channeling, even if this sounds a bit like like magic or something else. It feels, at least it feels like it. It doesn't feel like hard work. It just needs to be done, and you're just here on earth to kind of portray this at the moment. And this is one thing on creativity that I love most. If you don't really know what you're doing, but it feels right, and afterwards you can fix the typos and whatever.
100%. I love that. You don't know what you're doing, but feels right. I love that. I'm gonna post that and quote you on next. And by the way, in the book itself, I mean it. As you write it, let me know. I would love to, if you need extra pair of eyes or whatever, book writing can also be a bit daunting, and so I've always, I try to bring people to read it, and a lot of people don't really follow through, and it's fine. They're having their their own life happening. So, but I mean it. So when you write and you want something, an extra pair of eyes, I would be happy to. And yeah, man, it's crazy to think that, I don't know. It's just this play between the rational mind and intuition is just very paradoxical, because I also write about it on the book that our brain is literally the last piece of it was formed. The prefrontal cortex was the last one. That's our judgment. That's our future sense making. That's all of this strategizing through life to survive. But if you think about it, if it's the last part, and for many out there, it's gonna make sense. For me, it was like a eureka moment. The brain, the limbical brain, the animal side of us, the amygdala, all of that, our emotions were the foundation, right? And so, how can we? And I ask myself, how can I leverage my emotions, my evolutionary sense, my lens of what am I, which is a chimpanzee that was evolved somehow, and hopefully brushes his teeth 2 or 3 times per day. How can I make sense of that while leveraging my emotions to make my prefrontal cortex work for me, in favor of me, not against me? And I've been grappling with that question myself even before writing the book, that how can I lean into that emotion? And it's difficult because, like you said, it just yields more uncertainty. Who wants to live a life of uncertainty? Naval Ravikant, who really posts a ton on X and has brilliant ideas, he says that one of the roots of unhappiness is not failure of outcome, is uncertainty, something like that. I'm gonna post it here as well. And uncertainty is really tough, especially living in modernity, where literally everything that you can have is right there in front of you. We're living in the most abundant times ever. Peaceful times, it can be debatable, but we're literally, we can leverage literally our own intuitive system, our minds, to really throw that fish net of serendipity and see what we find. Because right now you're not being hunted by a lion. Right now you're not really in danger, really, in a literal sense. You can really throw yourself out there, and the worst case scenario is you might fail. What happens? Did you lose some social reputation? Did you lose a potential opportunity of employment? There's so many out there, man. There's so many. And so taking that risk, taking that leap of faith, can really yield asymmetrical payoffs. It can really be a failure, and you can put the graph. It can be like this, you fail, but the asymmetrical can be a hockey stick. You can finally live a life you want. You can write that book. You don't need permission to write a book. Who told? Like, it's like you said, it's just all of these gatekeepers of ideas saying you should be somewhere in your life to write a book. I'm not there in my life yet. The book in itself is helping me get there. I wrote the book for myself. You know what I mean? And like you said, this permissionless life that you can live, of sense of agency, especially in the age of AI, especially when really people are gonna, that's also part of why I wrote the book. People are gonna start questioning these themes, because a lot of people are gonna be laid off, probably, or a lot of people are gonna start saying, if AI can do my job better than me, should I be doing my job? Shouldn't, like, maybe I can explore something else, I also quote Elon Musk on the book. He had an interview with CNBC, and the host asks him, hey, I have a kid who's going to college, and he's grappling with what to do with his life, especially in the age of AI. What would you recommend to him? And I love this because Elon took his time, probably took like a minute and a half in a CNBC interview, which is, quick. You have to answer quickly. And he said, it's one of the hardest things to face, because what if we get to a place where AI does my job better than myself, does better than me? What if it really, all of the blood, sweat, and tears were for nothing? All of the time not spent with family were for nothing? If I could have, embraced that part of myself. Elon Musk said, one of the persons that I really admire the most, that's really changing our reality. We're living probably in his reality. Um, and so, and then he says, you should really focus your life in following your heart. I'm paraphrasing. You should focus your life following your heart and doing what best serves other people. And we're talking about that, you and me, Emil. We're talking about that. We're saying in an age of deeper uncertainty relating to career, the deepest we've had ever, that it's exponentially increasing, our, people who we admire the most are grappling with these same existential questions of, is it all worth it? Or maybe I can pivot my career, my life into something that it's the betterment for myself and for others. And so, yeah, it's really interesting.
Definitely, and it's so hard and so uncertain to see where this is heading. There's ideas of that AI or AI applications, better said, should serve us in to free us to make arts and philosophy, and now the AI is making art for, and we are still programming. But I think that will twist some time where maybe, I don't know, if there's a new kind of renaissance going on where we have the time to free up and think deeper and break out of these machinistic kind of industrialized workflow where we're living in right now. We're breaking from it, and I think the next few generations will look a lot different on this side. So I'm just swiping through your book because I highlighted some parts.
That's really that means a lot. Thank you, man. That means a lot.
Yeah. There's so many self-imposed beliefs that you currently have right now, and you need to kind of unprogram yourself to be your own creative self. And it is always, so I'm kind of paraphrasing what you've said, it's always easier to be authentic than to be perfect. And this is something that I need to tell myself a lot of times. You can never reach perfection. It's so frustrating in trying to do that. But after the unprogramming of your self-imposed beliefs, or what should a successful life look like, if you kind of break from that, you can stick to your authentic self and really live a creative life that you want and create meaning and connect with others who might have the same ideas or similar ideas.
100%. 100%. It's, man, I'm concerned because a lot of people don't really realize the preciousness of being alive, of really being in the moment and having the opportunity of exploring who you truly are. And a lot of us are being bombarded all the time, especially through social media, TikTok Reels, Instagram Reels, on how you should look like, the attire that you should wear, the kind of words that you should speak to. And it boggles my mind that there's almost 8 billion people. I don't know if we're more now. And in the beginning chapters of the book, I say there's, I think this is Henry Thoreau who said that there's an inner song that is being whispered through for everyone, for every man. And there's this life of quiet desperation of not exploring that inner whisper, that song. And it just, I'm concerned because a lot of people won't have the opportunity to find that genuine part of themselves. Not to their fault necessarily, because they don't really understand that it's possible, that it's possible to do it, that it's more desirable for your partner, for your friends, for your own self, for others, for life itself, for the world, to be your own sense of self, to be your own person, than to being a copy of others. And
Yes.
it does also, on a selfish part, on a selfish sense, it does so much disservice to your time on earth. It really boggles my mind, on an optimistic point of view, that we're really here on a tiny blue dot. Doesn't make sense. There's aliens, there's not aliens. Are we the only planet with life? It boggles my mind that you're not putting all of your service on earth, all of your time here, to find your true self and to share that colors with others. And not a lot of people see life like that. Again, not because of something bad, morally wrong, because no one's speaking about this, that life is exciting. The twists and turns, the failure in itself can be exciting. Failing in life can be exciting. It's you're trying
Yeah.
to find your path. And like you said, people who are our age, 20s, 30s, maybe 18-year-olds, have the best opportunity to throw everything on the wall and see what sticks of themselves, and start discarding what doesn't. For example, I've been trying, since I wrote the book, doing like open mic stand-up comedy. I've been doing that.
Yeah.
And last week I had an open mic and I bombed. They laughed, but just once, and a lot of people.
Yeah.
It was so funny because the reason why I bombed, the like, they laughed, but I didn't expect what happened, and that's probably another interview in itself. But I said a joke that it really didn't really land. People got like concerned about it, and you're throwing out stuff. You're failing. It's fine. That night in itself might have been cringy. Like, hey, naturally speaking, no one wants to be in a front stage making stupid jokes and making people uncomfortable. But I'm doing it anyways, because my intention is finding that authentic sense of self. If my heart is speaking that I should try to land a joke, I should try to be funny, I'm charismatic, I want to lean into that, then do it, man. Do it.
Yeah.
And this whole existential rant is just, I think it boils down to that I love life, and I want more people to really see how beautiful life can be if you realize that the time is now to honor it, to really honor your time on earth, that really you can, that it's possible for all of us. So, that's my motivational rant here, Emil.
Yeah. So instead of playing the status game, honor your time on earth and really do yourself, and don't try to be like a piece of a jigsaw puzzle. You're never meant to fit in, and it's not even two-dimensional. You're much more than that. And so I will definitely, as I will finish your book. I really liked it, and I think it speaks to me. So I really like the like as in the last part here, I really like the pondering sections where you kind of reflect on what you've read. And this is especially helpful if you have like a shorter attention span. So that made it easier because of the questions, I kind of rehearsed and remembered the other parts from that chapter. And definitely I will go especially back to like the questions and really reflect upon them, and not just read through them and in order to get the book done, then, because that doesn't make sense either way. So just finishing a book quickest doesn't make sense. So I will definitely go back and answer the questions, maybe just for myself, maybe I share a bit. But anyways, thank you so much for your time and for this collaboration, so to speak. And yeah, just thank you. And hopefully we can do this another
absolutely,
time.
Emil. Thank you for your time, and really, it means a lot. It's just weird because it's weird when others read your ideas and can relate, you know, like you don't expect that. It's
Yeah.
and if one sentence resonated with you, that's like mission accomplished, you know. And so I might say a lot of numbers sometimes, or that sort of thing. I might repeat some ideas out there, but it means a lot. And yeah, we'll keep in touch. Let me know how your book goes. And I appreciate the interest. And one idea that you said just before we wrapped up, that said, you know, the status game versus the genuine game, versus the finding your own path game. There's no one much more attractive on this reality than someone who stops playing the status game, that removes themselves from the status game, that creates their own game. You're the king of your game, you know, no one
Yeah.
else beats you on your own game. And so trying to live a life based on the status game of, hey, yes, I was summa cum laude from Stanford. Look at me. I have all of the credentials to talk about, 10 books on, sciencey stuff. Look at me with all of my medals. That in itself becomes cringy, you know? That in itself becomes
Yeah.
like you're just trying to piece this armor of a soldier who's not really genuine. Whereas when you're someone who, all of us are playing status games, that's just natural. But when you're someone who realizes,
Yeah.
you know what? Let my work speak for itself. Let my craft speak for itself. I'm going to explore my own self. I'm going to lean into what makes me tick, what makes me me. There's no one much more attractive than that. And we desperately need original thinkers in an age of AI, especially like you said. We need people with high sense of agency. We really need people to start questioning, how would life look like if AI can do my job better than me? And how can I connect more with other people? Because we're gonna see that as well. We're gonna see a lot of people start leaning into human connections more than technology. And we need to foster that
Yeah.
thought process, we need to foster that creativity. And so I hope that my book helps that movement go into place. But Emil, I really appreciate you. Let's do this again, okay?
Yeah, definitely. See ya. Bye.